Yeah, we're in a woodworking shop. However, sometimes you run into occasions where we got to do a little metalworking, and that's what I want to look at here. On this shaving horse I built, it called for a metal pin that acts as a retainer here, and it needed to be bent into an L in order to hold that board in place and then give us something to grab onto when we want to remove it. So I learned a couple things when I did this, and I'm going to pass this along to you. One, let's talk about gas selection. If you go to a big box store or a hardware store, blue is propane, yellow is MAP. So for years in my shop, you know, I've done plenty of soldering in home improvement projects and always used propane for that. And then when I started poking around a little bit about, I have seen these things, what's the deal? The MAP gas burns hotter. It's a little bit more expensive than propane, but what it's going to come down to is that because it gives us more heat, it's going to get us to a point where we can bend metal quicker. So I switched to the MAP gas and it made a big difference. The same tip is compatible with both bottles, so there's no change there. So MAP gas is a good way to go. Then two, when this 1/2-inch metal rod goes in the vise, one of the things you want to be cognizant of is that we're going to heat this out here. We're going to do an L bend just like I showed you. And if that bend point is too close to the vise, what's going to happen is we're going to take forever to heat this up because the vise is acting as a big heat sink. And a lot of that heat is telegraphing to that huge piece of metal. So that's very intentionally why I have my bend point projected out here away from the vise. Just in the world of metal vices, I love this setup. I don't use a metal vise often, but I use it, obviously. So what I do with mine is I put it on a piece of plywood, and then when I need it, I can bring that plywood to my bench, clamp it in place, and I've got access to my metal vise. We definitely don't want to have this in the wood jaws of my good wood vise because of the heat that we're about to generate. Well, anytime you use a torch, doesn't matter which one it is, the hottest point of that flame is the very, very tip of the blue. So there's a little bit of a tendency to want to bury that flame like that up against the metal. But your best bet to get this to heat up quickly is to get the tip of that flame on your bend point. In real time, it's been about 10 minutes, and I'm looking for, I want this to be red hot, like a chili pepper. And in the world of stuff we need, the other thing we need is a grabby thing. Don't grab that with your hand. And when I first pull on this, if it's not, oh, look at how easy that's going. If it's not inclined to go, apply a little more heat. That's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. So a couple tips there, in case you run into this in your shop. MAP gas, portable vise, metal vise, grippy things. Give it time, let it get good and hot, and it'll bend easy. Now another lesson I learned out of this, the hard way, when I went to the hardware store, they had two types of rod there. And the first one I bought was called welding rod, same deal, 1/2-inch, 36 or 48-inch length. And when I went to heat that, it took forever. There's no way it heated in 10 minutes. And what I later learned is the metallurgy of welding rod is completely different than this stuff. So this silver, big box store, hardware store rod, when you're gonna bend it with a MAP tank, is definitely the way to go. You can get the welding rod to bend, but it takes a lot more heat and a lot more time. So some tips there to help make good, cool, hot things happen in your shop.